It's not a tumor.
That's not what's
Name
you're
that
thinking
movie.
of Arnold Schwarzenegger, but
Yeah.
it's not Tuma.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. In Kindergarten Cop. It's not a tumor.
Ready? Please, God, can we get her to shut up?
Speaking to me.
I'm Josh Sigman.
And I'm Brynn Rouse.
I'm a mortgage guy with a passion for money, business, and elevating my game. Brynn is my co-host. She's my friend and marketing director for my mortgage team.
That's right. I'm a marketing girl, a mama of 3, and wife of 1. And like Josh, elevating life, business, and relationships, well, it's my jam.
This season's topic, elevate your game.
What do you want?
Do you want to push personal limits, find joy, be more present?
Be a better parent, have a sexier marriage, make more money, save more money, start your own business, develop a hobby, or strengthen important relationships?
Impact the world, be a better boss, or create a stronger business? Then you are ready to elevate.
And this is the place to do it.
Are you ready? Sigman Sense Season 3, elevate your game. All right, welcome back. Are you ready?
Welcome back. Welcome back to Sigman Sense, and I am ready.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yes, thank you all for of you that have subscribed and that are listening and that are commenting and are emailing and doing all the things. Thank you so much. It's been really fun, and don't forget to check out the shorts page. It's called Short Sense.
I hear it's short.
It is short. It is short. So the best 5 to 8 minute clips of every episode you can digest quickly are on that page. So, and we're doing #shorts.
She's the creative genius.
Josh doesn't know what that is, so
Don't know what that
he
means.
just laughs. He laughs nervously when he has no idea what we're talking about.
It's a giggle. It's more of a giggle. What are we talking about today, Brynn?
Pivot.
All right, I think it's a relevant topic. And so much so I've been talking about this with our business partners, with our company, with coaching for every bit of 30 days now. And let me kind of explain what I mean. So the word pivot, right? So I want you to think in terms of pivoting is just a change of your angle of attack. That's all. Like, it doesn't mean stop doing everything. So think about this being a business conversation or a personal conversation or the way you approach a relationship or whatever it is, right? It's just not working out the way you expected it to work out. So the conversation today is about pivoting, and pivoting is about just changing that angle of attack. So maybe you need to change a little bit, maybe you need to change a lot. But I do think that there's a better process that can be utilized to give you a better chance of success because, you know, certainly the first answer is that obviously doing the same thing over and over and over again, if you don't like the results, don't do it anymore. What they say the definition of crazy, right?
Yes, is doing the same thing over
and over again. So we're not going to do that. I would also say that a lot of people just choose to do nothing because what they're doing right now is not working. So they're like, screw it, I'm going to give up. This doesn't work for me. And that is equally stupid, in my opinion. And so really what it comes down to is there a systematic way that you can approach a problem to make it better? And so I absolutely believe that is a truth.
But let's talk about this too. Does there have to be a problem to make a pivot?
So
because we're talking about elevation.
I love that. So let's just say that you're not thrilled with a area of your life and you want to be a little bit better. So that's a great starting point. I want to talk about the 3 A's. So my business coach brought this up because you're right. It doesn't have to be horrible, but you just want to be better. Because
we're talking about elevating, right? So, it doesn't have to.
Actually, I'll be vulnerable for a second because this is perfectly what you're talking about. So, I want my marriage to be incredible, not just average or good,
right?
Or even better than good. I want it to be incredible. Like, why wouldn't I? Right. If I'm married to somebody for 50 years, I might as well make it incredible, right? And so I'm constantly looking at ways I can, date my wife better or love on her or learn about. Like I'm reading this book right now. My son was in the car, poor guy. The book is, I shit you not, the book is called She Comes First. But it's a book that some of the women in my office were saying, hey, this is really good to understand women better.
Yeah.
So I'm literally listening to this book in the car, and Mason's like, dude, why are you listening to books about chicks? And I was like, well, there's 3 of them in my household. I've got a wife and 2 daughters, and then I work with all women, it seems like. So,
and we also rule the world. So
right, just get used to it, right?
Just get used to it.
So I'm reading this book or listening to this book on Audible, and Mason's trying to understand. I said, look, I just want to interact better. Like, that's really it. So it doesn't have to be horrible. But, sometimes I go home and say, hey, Christy, what's one thing I can do to be a better husband? And she's real quick to give me 5, right? And then I'm like, well, here's one thing, and like, shut up.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me, right?
Notice how I did not reciprocate the question.
Exactly right. So there's 3 A's that my coach talks about. 3 A's. And
Well, pause really quick. Is it a good book?
So far.
Yeah.
Well, let's say it this way. The only reason I'm reading it is because it was the 4th female that I respect recommended it to me, because I'm always asking, like,
I have never heard of it.
Yeah, it's called She Comes First. It's more about, don't overthink the sex piece of it. It's about empowering women. But the 3 A's that my coach referenced starts with number 1 is attitude, and I think this is really an interesting place to start. The attitude portion is I am broke. Like, here's the attitude I try to take on, and what my coaching group takes on is I am broken. I hate it. I'll fix it. Right? I'm broken. I hate it. I'll fix it. Okay. So that's got to be the attitude you take on to just improve in any area of life that you want to improve on. Right. And so I just got a pop quiz, Brynn. I'm just curious, of the 3 statements, what do you find to be the most important of the 3 statements?
Which 3 statements?
I am broken. I hate it. I'll fix it.
Oh, most important.
Which part of the 3?
Probably I am broken.
Wrong. So let me say why.
I'll fix it.
Let me just explain why, though. So it's not I am broken, because a lot of us look in the mirror sometimes, we're like, it's not exactly where I want to be. A lot of us look at relationships like, I could have done better in that conversation. So I am broken is an important piece, but is not the most important piece of the 3. So what's your second choice?
I'll fix it.
I'll fix it. Wrong. Here's why. This is why this is important, guys. Everyone does. A lot of people do goals. A lot of people do New Year's resolutions. I'll do better. I'll fix it. I will date you better. I'll do better in business. Like, I'll fix it is a common statement. The most important piece, in my opinion, is the I hate it, because you have to hate it enough to do something about it. Otherwise, you'll just tolerate the average bullshit that you're going through, the average results or whatever. You have to hate it so much. Like, think about, so this will hit close to home, because I know that your son has diabetes, right? Mm-hmm. So remove junior diabetes from the equation, but this is just something we hear about a lot. Somebody overeats and overeats and overeats, and their doctor says, hey, dude, you should really stop that. And they keep on overeating, and they get type 2 diabetes, and they're like, dude, if you keep this shit up, you're gonna kill yourself. And then all of a sudden they get type 1, and they go into a coma, and the doctor says, dude, this is the reason, like, all these years I've been saying, you gotta listen to me. And suddenly maybe they decide to make a change, right? But as an example, it's got to be a level of pain, and hopefully it doesn't go that far of pain for somebody to fix it. You think about, what's that book? Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus, right? Yes. They talk about how, a piece of that book talks about how when a husband and wife get into a ugly fight, and it's like close to the end, there's a point where all of a sudden the wife brings up the D word to the guy, and the guy's like all of a sudden really in work on shit, right? But the guy brings up, if the woman's already made the choice, it's like too late, right? Right. On the flip side, the guy's willing to work on it. So whether or not somebody's willing to take care of that pain early enough is really the question mark if you get the results, but you got to hate it. So business-wise, you got to think in terms of, are you where you want to be? Are you getting the results you want to get? Are you doing the hours you want to get your results done in? And do you hate it enough to do it a little bit better? Yes or no, right? So let's assume that I'm right, that the attitude is, I'm broken, I hate it, I'll fix it, okay? So then the second step then is, what's the action? Well, what the action is like, whatever you're doing, assume 25 to 100% more, right? So I can equate that to business, right? So I know in our business, if I make a certain number of calls, we typically get a certain number of leads, which generates a certain number of transactions. If I have a certain number of referring partners, we get a certain number of leads, which is a certain number of transactions. And certainly, we're recording this here in the late spring, early summer of 2022, and market is changing rapidly in real estate. Right. And so, the reality is that we have to have 25 to 100% more effort as far as more conversations, more relations. It's just the truth, right? So you can equate that to, I walk 3 days a week. Well, if you don't get the results you want, well, are you walking 30 minutes or an hour, right? Like, just do 25 or 100% more, but something's got to be a little bit, the action's got to be increased, right? And then the third piece is what's the ambition? Because this is the last key of the 3 A's. The ambition is for what purpose? It's to be a little better, right? It's not about getting, if you're starting to save and, you're finally budgeting. I try to explain to everyone, you're not going to become a millionaire tomorrow because you started budgeting today. Correct. You're not going to, get rid of $100,000 of debt because you started paying off debt these last 3 months. It's getting a little bit better every month, and that compounded over years is what gets you the results that you really want. But you got to get addicted to a little bit better, right? No different than, like the number one way to lose weight is just get on the scale every day. Right? It can be 0.1 better, but
absolutely,
it's the right direction. In fact, I think what the most maddening thing about weight loss is body fat percentage.
Yeah.
Body fat percentage is just like, to do it in a healthy way anyways, it is a slow moving needle, right? It's like 0.5% a week or 1% a week would be like extraordinary, and it feels like nothing.
Right?
Business is the same way. Money is the same way. Relationships are the same way.
Yes,
it's about getting a little bit better. And so it's the understanding of, in this day and age of instantaneous gratification, you're flipping through your phone and you're getting that little shock of adrenaline, or that's not the chemical I'm looking for. Dopamine, thank you.
And serotonin.
You get that little shock of like the good stuff really quickly on a dime. You got to understand that for the long-term results, when you're talking about this overall elevating your game in whatever area we're working on, the ambition's got to be a little bit better all the time, a little bit better all the time.
Just a little.
So that's my starting point for why pivoting is relative. Like you said, whether it's a big problem or I just want to be improving.
Just want to be improving a little bit, even if it's not terrible.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. I hope it's not terrible for you. If you're listening in, I hope that it's not terrible in your life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is not about therapy today, guys. It's about this whole series is about being a little bit better and elevating your game in whatever area that's important to you.
I love it. Okay, so under the first bullet point, so we have attitude, which is the three questions under attitude are I am broken, I hate it, or I will fix it.
Yep. Well, it's a statement, right? It's got to become a what's the word? A daily affirmation, right? I'm broken, I hate it, I'll fix it. I'm broken, I hate it, I'll fix it. I'm broken for sure. I hate it enough that I'll fix it today.
So to me, the I am broken piece is just being humble enough to admit that you don't have it all figured out.
Yep.
And that it's not all perfect. Because I think there's a fair share that I don't want to say sticking their head in the sand, because there could be so many things going right, but staying humble enough to be able to say, hey, things are going really well and there's still room for improvement.
Yep.
Right? So that's the humility piece to me. I hate it is a really honest thing to say, because the thing that you hate is probably the thing that is the most uncomfortable to address. It's something you really don't want to do at all. So to me, that's going to be the hardest one, which is probably why it's the most important one, as you said. And then I will fix it. And I think that I will fix it is a matter of when and how.
And the will to see it through.
And the how to me is a lot of times, how can I do one more thing? How can I add anything else to my day, my schedule, my calendar? And so
when I said the 25% to 100% more, you're probably like, oh God, this is exhausting.
Right. And so to me, that takes another direction. That goes to, if that's the way you feel about having to do anything else, then the first place to start is to go and look at your calendar and really do some prioritizing and removing of things that just have to change. Because this is causing, like this overfill of the calendar is causing bad habits in other areas probably.
Well, I love that, because that's an excellent segue into step one of pivoting.
Well,
it's almost like it was by design.
It was kind of, but it wasn't, because remember when you taught this last, I wasn't listening. I was totally out of it.
You were.
In being a space cadet.
You were working in the back of the room on our business because we needed it. But let's talk about this. So pivot. Remember, all I'm saying is change direction, change of attack, the angle of attack. I'm
still thinking. All I'm thinking about is Ross Geller right now. So that's fine. Pivot. Change the direction that you're moving the couch.
That's right.
Okay.
So if you're old, like Brynn and I, old, then you might remember the Friends episode that she's referencing with pivot. But not everyone listening to this has ever heard of or watched Friends. Brynn, you understand that?
I do not understand that. I do not at all, actually.
So step one of pivot. Here we go.
Okay.
So step one is you got to address where you are now. Where are you now? Where are you now?
Where
are you now?
are you?
And so this, in my opinion, is no more than a 30-minute exercise. It can be an hour, but this is not a think about this forever. It's not a week long, a month long. Like, that's one of the things I hate the most is people overthink everything and don't do shit. But
well, this goes to the wheel of life. The first part. So we talk about
question,
So for those that may be new to the show, we talk a lot about the wheel of life, and the wheel of life is basically the 7 areas of life that you should be constantly evaluating. And when you go through this task, great word, exercise of completing your wheel of life, the first question, the first page is, where are you now? And it's designed to be gut reactions and honest. So just to reiterate, like, don't belabor this. Whatever your gut tells you or whatever it comes to mind first is probably the right answer, and write it down and move on.
Exactly right. And so, this is going to be more geared towards, I would say, business in this case, but it's applicable all through it. So the where are you now? There's, 5-6 questions that I always ask. The first one is always, are you on track or not? So whatever your goal is, so you can apply this in any of the areas of your real life, but certainly in business, are you on track for your goal this year or not? Pause there. If you don't have goals, you're less likely to be successful in life. So just understand that. So have goals. Be okay if you hit them. Be okay if you miss them. It's just a stepping stone. It's not the end of the freaking world if you miss a goal.
Or it's a guide.
It's a guide. It's directional. It's basically think of it like GPS. It's like gives you an idea of which direction you should be going based on what you think is important at the time of a sentient, sober moment where you've put some thought into it, right? So you're not winging it every day. But my point is question one is, are you on track or not? Yes or no? And by how much, I would say. The second question that you ask yourself is, well, what is working? Because certainly there are things that you're doing in your life, in your business, in your workouts, in your spirituality, in your money, whatever it is, you're doing well, right? Maybe you are actually budgeting. You just don't like the results of the budget. Maybe you are actually, getting in 40 hours a week. You're just not getting the results that you want out of the 40 hours a week. Maybe you're getting the results that you want, but you're working 80 hours a week. My point is, what is working is really important, because you don't want to stop doing that piece. Followed up by the other question, which is what isn't working. And I gave you some examples right there as well. Earlier I said that, here we are in April, May, June of 2022, and the market's changed. And so what isn't working is that we're having to have more agent and business partner and past client referrals to close the same amount of business as last year. So it's really important to understand that. And if we don't adjust and adapt, then our business will go backwards. It's really that simple.
It's also a moment to say, what is there a different direction we need to go?
Sure.
So the podcast is a great example. Another avenue of referral sources. So 70% of our business is realtor driven at this point.
And the vast majority of the difference is past clients. Yep.
And so if what we're doing to market and sell to them is not getting the results, even with the additional people that we've added, that we identified, okay, we need more referring partners, then what's another avenue?
That's right.
So being comfortable with kind of not following the same path you always have and just doing more of it, but pivot to another avenue. And that may take some learning, to market to a completely different group of people.
Yep.
You may need some new messaging. You may need a different tactic to get to them. So
what's working, what's not working, and so from that, what you just actually said very eloquently is the next question is what needs to be added. Like, do you have a new marketing source? Do you need to add a teammate? Do you need to add a budget? Do you need to add a personal trainer? Like, what needs to be added that gives you a better chance? Remember, we're pivoting here, right? So what needs to be added to get you back on track or in a better trajectory, right? The same question then comes up, again, you brought up in the segue, which is what needs to be subtracted. Because I'm a big believer in, I really believe that you can do more in the same or less time. It's about being effective with the hours you've got.
Yeah.
I'm a family guy first. It took me a lot of years to believe that. I shouldn't say that. It took me a lot of years for my actions to reflect that belief, right?
Yeah.
So if I were to go back and relive Aubrey age 0 through 6, I've got a lot of regrets. for sure. I was working way too many hours, and I was always
I
justifying
hate that you have
it.
regrets.
I did better with Mason. I did better with Presley.
Third pancake.
Well,
I
here
mean,
I
we
am
all,
today.
I mean,
Today I'm literally taking my oldest daughter to go get a driver's permit,
Yeah.
right? And so I can't get back those first 7 years where I was like her hero. And in about a year's time, she will be saying, you know, other than, you know, I'll see you at dinner time. That's about all I'm going to see
Yeah.
if she comes home for dinner, right? So I missed out on those couple of years because I was prioritizing incorrectly, I think. My point is that I know that you can get more done in less time. It's about being effective. And so many books are so good about this, but the 4-hour work week, 4 hours, that's too few.
Yeah.
Because I do think idle hands do the devil's work. So as long as you have like 30 businesses that each require 4 hours, awesome. But outside of that, realistically, 30 to 50 hours, I think is a good balance where you can have a good business. You can be a good employee. You can have a great family life. You can still travel. You can do all those things. When you start hitting, you know, I hate hearing, and I've heard it many times. I hate hearing that if you don't work your, 80 to 100 hours in your 20s, you're never going to be successful. I think that's bullshit. I just do think it's horseshit, and I think it's the wrong thing to be teaching and listening to.
Do you
and
think
following.
it's the wrong thing for people with families? And would your answer differ if you
No.
are a young, single?
I think habits are hard to break, right? So if you're young and single, guess what happens when you're single too long? You get somebody pregnant eventually, right? You get married and get somebody pregnant. And if you're used to
And
working
then if
90
you're hard,
hours,
if you're hard-coded
think about it.
to-
The relationship started with you working 90 hours a week. The
Right.
relationship tolerates 90-hour a week work, and then all of a sudden you have a baby on the way,
And now
you're still working 90
things
hours a week.
change, yeah.
Yeah. So I also think that it's really terrible when a 20-year-old kid gets cancer and dies. Right. And so they work 90 hours a week for what? So I do think that the balance between the Gen, Xers and the, whatever you want to call the newest generation, I think there's a balance between the, yes, you want to work, and yes, you want to be independent, and yes, you need to put money on the table, and yes, you need to be able to retire. And then the other end of the spectrum, which is, I want to live every day like it's my last day, and screw the man, and I don't want to have a job, and I just want to travel the world. Both of those are no different than being very, very far right or very, very far left. They're both stupid. It's somewhere in the middle is probably the right answer. It's not all one way or all the other.
It just goes back
Does
to
it make
balance.
sense?
No, it does.
It's just
Yeah, no, it does.
somewhere in between. And so, but the assumption though has to be,
Which
I can assume I can do more or the same in the same or less time.
That is the answer.
That's the assumption.
That is the
and if you
assumption.
don't believe that, it'll never happen.
Right. But
And
what
that's-
is so interesting is your evolution, Josh, because
years.
I really do. I think I'm almost positive I can remember a time where your answer was, if you are single and by yourself, get after it.
Yep.
Get after it. And I'm talking like this probably
Within this podcast.
Within this podcast. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Which is less than 4 years.
I
basically.
went to I could hear that conversation in the first studio. So
I would say that there's an advantage to it. So I'll give some precursors and asterisks to this as well. Like, if you love your job, or if you want to take a risk and be an entrepreneur, and you love being there all day long and it's fun for you, please do it, and do it when you're young without kids and somebody like there. I think there's a difference, right? Like if you're going to go all in and make a run at it, whatever that is,
that is the time to do it.
That's the time to do it, right?
Yeah.
When you don't have any other mouths to feed and eyeballs looking back at you, or the absenteeism of you is the thing I think about, right? I also think that working 40 hours a week and then spending the other 40 hours in a bar, bad choice. So it's what
Right.
you're doing with the rest of your time.
Yeah.
So it's about healthy activities in that choice. So if you're saying, Josh, the second I time out at 5 o'clock, I'm gonna be in the bar till 2 a.m. and barely make it back, but I'm having fun. That's poor
They're
choices
networking.
as well. They're networking. Yes. That is spoken like a true influencer.
like a true marketing person.
Right. So, but you guys should be paying attention to what I'm saying, right? Like, it's business and life by design. And so when you stand back and look at, like, that's why I love this. It's so relevant to elevate your game in all things, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee, because I know a couple of my young friends that are old neighbors, or like literally they were children and they were my neighbors years ago, and now they listen to this. And there's a couple of my past clients that we've spoken over the years that I've become their mentor, and they're in their mid-20s right now. And I literally am like speaking to them.
Yeah.
It's like, if you stand back and look at your life and you're really happy with it, awesome, keep doing it. But if there's an area of an opportunity you're foolish to waste the opportunity.
Don't waste it.
When you're in your 20s.
Because you have so much energy.
Dude. Absolutely.
It's energy.
Absolutely. But I need to finish those questions.
You do,
too.
but before you do that, I really, one of the things you said I think is most impactful is if you're in your 20s, you're young, you're single and working and conditioned, maybe you're in a relationship but not married, and the relationship is conditioned to 90 hours, and then the change happens of you get married or have a baby, and you're not able to very quickly identify that a change needs to be made. This is where
you make a mistake.
You're like, hear that piece clearly if this is you, because having a baby is hard enough, and so much changes, and that is going to make it even more difficult if that change is not adjusted for very quickly.
And it's a different conversation when the supporting spouse, husband or wife, whoever the supporting spouse is, says, no problem, stay out late. No problem, stay out late. When you don't have a kid, it is, I promise you, it's different.
It's a very different
within 30 days of having a child.
Yes.
But finishing those questions, right?
So wrap it up at the bar a little earlier, please.
Right. So what's working, what's not, what needs to be added, what needs to be subtracted.
Yep.
So take things off your calendar that you're doing right now that are a waste of time, not getting the results you want, or preventing you from doing something that's more impactful, right? And then the last question I always ask myself is what I need to learn, right? So there's a skill set that I didn't have 3 or 6 months ago that I learned that progressed my career or made me a better husband or made me tighter with my spiritual leaders, right? There's for sure something I need to learn for the next 3 or 6 months to move the needle. And so if you're thinking about pivoting and what's one thing I need to learn, I'll give you a great example. So anyone that bought or understands anything about real estate in the last 2 years knows that from 2020 to 2022, people have been making crazy offers, over asking price, and multiple offer scenarios. And it's very difficult to get, at the peak I was hearing it was 15 offers per one accepted contract for one client, right? So there's a concept that is an old concept. We've done it years before, but you forget things as you go. It's called appraisal gap management. And basically, there's a strategy to managing the possibility and reality of appraisal coming in low in an offer, and how do you get your offer accepted. And I'm not going to go through that in this podcast, not the point. But basically, how do you win out in a multiple offer scenario when you're expecting the appraisal to come in low, which means your financing would change, and you want to make sure that you have the cash to make this work, or the payment, or make it look good in offer. Well, we were teaching that back, 9 months ago at this point, and won lots of offers for our clients. And that was something that agents kept looking at me like, you can't do that. If the appraisal comes in low, you can't get the finance. Like, no, I promise you, I know what the fuck I'm doing.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we've been teaching this, and agents have learned this, and lots of other agents already knew it. But that's a skill set that people didn't have that got learned, and it affected their business, okay? Well, that's old news now. If you're in real estate at this point, if you don't understand that, you're just like an idiot and you have your head in the ground. And I shouldn't say it that way. Like, ask me a question and please I'll teach you, because you should know that. It's a basic skill set, right? So the question then is let's assume we already learned that. Well, don't stop learning.
Don't stop learning.
So what's the next thing we got to learn? So maybe, it resonated when I said, yeah, you actually do a budget. You just went, well, maybe you don't do a budget. So let's just try that one out. We maybe learn that. I've offered to my team, one-on-one coaching on their personal family budget since I've known you guys. And it's amazing to me that people still on my team still don't raise their hand.
He's even offered to pay us
money. I literally at this time have a $500 bounty out if you'll meet with me 3 times for to go through your personal, so I can help you make and keep more money. If you'll meet with me 3 times to do it, I'll give you $500. And like, it's been, thank God 3 people rose their hand and said, I'll do it.
I'm like, for the love of God, people, I had to go behind you and be like, all right, people. Like, who is signing up? Because if nobody does, his head is going to explode.
It's the craziest thing. But like, at some point you got to say, I'm gonna get my head out of the sand. I'm going to learn.
Well, and and here's the thing, Josh. Here's the thing. What can you learn from this severe resistance?
Honestly?
Or can you change the approach?
Well, I changed the approach. I bribe people. No, I think my answer is that it just goes to show you just how embarrassed and or unsure and or uneducated even my team is about money.
Yes. Yes, I think it's probably the first. It's that there's an embarrassment, and I messed up my mic, so I'm gonna hold it for a second. Yeah, I really screwed this up. But maybe changing the approach of, a lot of people don't understand what goes into a budget meeting.
Yep.
Because the things that we hear that they're scared of are so far off base. Like, that never comes up. Like, that's not what he's going to do.
I'm not going to tell you not. I'm going to give you information, and you do what you want to do with it. I'm not going to tell you to cancel it.
It's not. It's not. I want to tell them it's not super super granular like they're expecting. Like, you're not saying, let me see your bank statements and let's go through every single item.
Well, what is the ambition?
But the point is, maybe removing some of the fear by giving examples of hey, let's go through a budget. Let me run through what we're going to actually go through, or let's say what
I'll do at the next team meeting.
What you need to be prepared for before or what you need to do to be ready for the first one or whatever. I don't know, but.
Well, the ambition is a little bit better. That's all I care about. It's got to be a little better.
Yeah.
You got to be better in your money. So, those are the 5 questions on step 1 of 7, by the way, for pivoting. The 5 questions are, number 1, what's working. Number 2, what's not. Number 3, what I need to add. Number 4 is what I need to subtract. And the last one, number 5, is what I need to learn. And so the whole idea here and why you start there is you got to know where you are and own it. Own it is the key in order for you to have the ability to make a change to move forward. So step 2 then becomes, if you think about step 1 is more about what you can control, things that you can control within your team or your lifestyle, your daily routine. Step 2 is taking note of the things that you can't, right? So things that what is the current environment? What is the market? Where are we in the market cycle? When you think about business, there's a lot of things that change. In my world, just because it's relevant to everyone right now, interest rates are going up. I can't change the fact that rates are going up. The Fed is raising the rates because we have horrible inflation. You got to increase the rates to slow down inflation. It's going to keep going up until that happens. It's just the reality. People that were born in the late 90s, early 2000s that have only seen house prices rates in the 2s, 3s, and 4s need to understand that that's not reality, and the average rates have been north of 6% for most of mortgage history. And so rates in the 4s and 5s are not bad. Rates at 6 are not bad. Rates
right.
Rates at 12s and 14, different conversation.
Well, and here's the thing too. I think the messaging, and I think we need to start doing a better job of this. The messaging needs to be that there's never, when you're investing in a home and investing in real estate and a place for your family to live, very rarely is it a bad investment.
Well, real estate long-term, historically over 100 years, goes up.
Right.
The question is timing, right? So, but I would tell anyone that if you are planning to buy and sell within a year or 2, you better be dialed in and know the market. If you're going to buy a house for 5 to 10, you're probably going to be fine no matter what you do. And so I don't disagree with that statement at all. And the reality is that going back to the whole point is if we don't pay attention to environmental changes, market changes, where we are in the market cycle, then we could have a very good plan that's irrelevant in the market that we're in. And so it doesn't mean that you can change it, but you certainly can take advantage of the market shifts. Like, one thing I want to be really clear about is that there are billionaires made in every market cycle. Like, there's, go back to 2020 and 2021. Basically, you could buy any kind of altcoin, and you did really well. So if you bought Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of the altcoins that are out there, reality is that you for sure made money, most likely in the latter part of 2020 and certainly most of 2021. That has shifted now, right? Why? Because backed by technology, and the technology sector, NASDAQ, got hammered in the last 6 months. And so you got some, that's one of many reasons why, prices of those coins have all fallen, right? Cryptocurrency. So my point here is we're acknowledging where you're on the cycle is a key piece, because you could have a great plan that was relevant in 2021 that applied today makes no sense whatsoever, right? In fact, there's a book called The 12-Week Year that suggests that the speed of, because of the information age and the speed at which things change is so great at this point that what was relevant 12 weeks ago, just 3 months ago,
right,
is no longer relevant today. And so the idea then becomes we need to make sure that we're having this pivot conversation regularly, a couple times a year. And it's not once a year anymore, like maybe the Stone Ages, but it's a regular conversation because that market shift happens very quickly. Like if you go to March 2020, that was basically the beginning of the last major, market down cycle, 40% off, or I think is what between March and May, I want to say it was a 40% drop in the stock market, right? But we were in a V-shaped recovery, and believe it or not, by the end of the same year, we were up,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And so people don't realize that the strategy that was employed in January worked or didn't. It certainly was different in April, which was relevant or irrelevant by the end of the year. And so you have to make note. And then here's the key, because I want to leave it number 2 alone, because it could apply to differently to all different businesses, right? But think about marketing, operations, finance. Think about when I think about this next piece. But anything that outside influence can have on your business needs to be taken note of. If you're thinking about a SWOT analysis, these are the threats. Threats are things you can't control, but you acknowledge.
Really quick, so a SWOT analysis, for those that may not know, is a very common practice that's used in businesses, and it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
Yep.
And so typically, we'll go through a SWOT analysis once a year. I mean, or I don't know if you do it more than that, maybe every 6 months. I don't know. We do ours about once a year.
And within it, the idea is that the weaknesses portion, the difference between weaknesses and threats. Weaknesses are things you can control. Threats are things you can't. And so, for example, I'm a very highly regulated industry, right? The government could literally choose to decrease my pay by 80% tomorrow.
Yes.
Like they could literally say, you can't make more than blank effective tomorrow. And there's nothing. They've definitely restricted things at different times all the time, right?
Yeah.
Dodd-Frank Act is something great to look at as far as a regulation that happened. It wasn't overnight, but it was very quickly, that changed the face of compliance within my industry.
Right.
And compliance is now one of the single biggest costs for mortgage lenders, right? But can I change that? No. It's how do I work with it? And here's why this is important, because number 3 is the key. Number 3 becomes then, you don't want to just say, hey, I'm on track for my goals, or hey, I'm off track for my goals, and hey, the government changed this, or oh my God, inflation changed this, or whatever. The third step is brainstorming opportunities to make the environment work for you, right? Because, again, billionaires are made in every market cycle. When the market goes up, when the market goes down, when real estate goes up, when real estate goes down, somebody's getting really, really, really rich. And that's in the business side of things. But it's the same thing with, let's just say, staying home with COVID, right? We said this in a podcast 2 years ago. I literally remember saying there are some people who are going to come back out of COVID and they're going to be 80 pounds heavier. And there's going to be some people that come back out of staying home with COVID that know a new language.
Yeah.
Right?
Or there's some people that'll come out divorced, and some
will be the tightest ever, some will be
yes.
divorced, right? So somebody's improving in every market cycle, whether it's controllable or not is the point. You might as well brainstorm ways that you can improve in whatever the environment is, right? So the best example I can give for something that I've taken part in the last 2 years is I remember going to it was San Antonio Housing Forecast, what it was. San Antonio Housing Forecast comes in every January, and it was actually, I think I did it virtually. It was 2021. Maybe I was there, I forget. 2021 is when it was, though. And I remember hearing about why there was such low inventory in San Antonio and South Texas. And it really said that there's so many people that have moved here from out of state, so many new jobs created, that there were not enough lots on the ground currently for builders to start building to take care of the existing need for at least 3 more years, right? And I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. And so as a result of that conversation, I was talking to a couple buddies of mine that are in the space, that are builders, that are developers, that are land people. and and we had these conversations a lot. It's like, man, we should probably like put some lots on the ground.
Yeah, we should buy some.
And so we did. And so over the last 18 months, there's a group of 4 of us now that have now purchased 3 separate ranches that we've developed into thousands of lots. Actually, the first one sell this month. So the first entire ranch was broken down now into 903 lots that are selling on June the 28th. And so my point is that there's a lot of people that looked around like, well, that sucks. We have no inventory. And I was like, well, shit, I might as well make money on it, right? Yes, it took relationships. Yes, it took means.
Right.
But I was thinking that way. And if you go back to like the 2007, 2008 stock market, there were people that were sitting around in Wall Street looking at like, wow, we're making shitty loans. We're buying shitty loans. This like we can ride this thing as long as it goes, or we can guess that this can't happen forever, and let's hedge against it, right? And what they called is the Big Short. You can read books about it. You can watch movies called The Big Short, and the group of guys that bet against the market in the hottest market, in history at that time, they bet against it, and they made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars as a result.
Yeah.
So that brainstorming can be a list of 5, 10 things or 10 things or 30 things that you could use to apply in your business. So I'll just give a more micro example, and maybe you can think of one too. So let's just say inventory. Inventory, since I already referenced it. So inventory drives prices, right? If you have more sellers than buyers, then you're in a buyer's market. If you have more buyers than sellers, you're in a seller's market. Right now, for the last 2 years, nationwide, we're in a seller's market. There's way more buyers than sellers, right? So price goes up because supply-demand curve dictates it, right? Well, what I noticed with a couple of my realtor friends is that in the last 4 weeks, inventory in South Texas, where we're at, went from 0.9 months to 1.1 months to 1.2 months to 1.3 months in 4 weeks, right? Which is really low inventory, by the way. 7 months inventory is like considered a normal, healthy market. So it's really low, but it's also called a trend. 0.9 to 1.3 in 4 weeks is a trend in the wrong direction. And so I'm going to stand around with my thumb up my butt, or I'm going to have conversations, which we've done for the last 3 weeks with all my agent friends and all the people I coach, saying, you have 2 messages to get out right now. Number one is call every single seller that was thinking about selling in 3 or 6 months and tell them they need to sell right now. Because if the market keeps moving in this trend, we've got factual data behind it, then the reality is that you're not going to get those multiple offer scenarios over asking price like you would right now. And the job of a realtor with a seller is to get the seller as much money as possible. So tell them, don't wait till Christmas. Sell in the summer right now. Here's the data. So here's brainstorming a way to use the environmental factors you can't change.
Well, here's another environmental factor too. We hosted a panel discussion with some agents that work with a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers. And one thing I heard loud and clear is their advice to sellers to get their house sold is a lot different now than it was a year ago.
3 months ago.
A year ago or 3 months ago, it was...
It's literally 3 months. It was January.
Everything needs to be fixed. You need a stager. We have to have it professionally cleaned. It has to be the shiniest penny on the market. And now that is not necessarily the case. So how can you use that as a motivation? Because I think about myself, right? Like if I wanted to move, in this season of my life, I would never ever do it because I don't want to do all the work that would go into making it the shiniest penny on the market. Like I want somebody, like I literally told my mom, okay, if we're going to list the house, you need to put in the remarks and you market it as, come see what it feels like when you're living in it, because they're going to come and see
That's funny,
what it's going, see how it feels
That's funny.
when it's not, absolutely perfect. But that can be used as a motivation to people that don't have the time to do all of that.
This is very, what you just said is spot on. What's really funny, and I love this because this goes back to the speed of the pivot. We've already cycled back. So I had a conversation with one of the panelists, Helen, this week that information, which was 2 months ago, I guess, was when we did that panel.
1 month ago.
Was it a month?
1 month ago.
I swear we just had this conversation. It's back.
Now it's back
now,
to shiny
now
pennies.
Now they're saying, look, so because the inventory is going up and rates have gone up, what's happening now is that people are going under contract, whereas before, don't even bother negotiating any repairs. Now contracts are falling apart because things are being fixed. So the conversation with sellers now is, look, you're going to have to fix something. You might as well get it done up front. So much so that I'm flipping a property with Joey right now. Joey went ahead and ordered a pre-listing inspection, which I flipped multiple properties this year, and we're getting 4 or 5 things on the inspection fixed before it goes in the market. Because look, smart. We don't want to get a house under contract and then fall out because of a repair issue.
Yeah.
So it's literally cycled through that.
What's
in a 3, 4, 5
interesting is
months
it seems like it is more about the integrity of the home is a bigger issue than like the what am I trying to say? The cosmetics, than the cosmetics. No, you don't need to upgrade those blinds to wood blinds, but you do need to make sure that the gutters are cleared. Yep. If that's a thing. I don't know. I'm more in the cosmetic realm.
It's certainly different in every city, and it's certainly different price points too. The expectations are different. But here's the point. You brainstorm the things you can't control about how to use that messaging to your advantage. And that works at home as well, right?
Here's what came to my mind. So I was listening to Oprah's podcast. I think it was a podcast of Oprah's. And she was interviewing Tom Brady. And I don't really know much about the guy, like whatever, just is what it like.
He's only the GOAT, but whatever.
I mean, he is. But I don't know anything like personally, like, other than that he's married to a supermodel and he's super hot and like wins a ton.
Has a baby by another supermodel.
Huh?
And has a baby by another supermodel.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Bridget Monahan, right? Is that am I getting that right? I think he left Bridget to get
not
with
only
a baby
do I have one.
Literally to get with the best supermodel of all time.
I mean,
Giselle,
yeah. Anyways, point is, through his story, he was saying that, he never had the strongest arm. He never was the strongest player on the team. He wasn't always the greatest of all time. Yep. And so he had to find other areas where he could shine and he could lean into. And one of them was leadership. He said, so I knew that I wasn't going to be able to go far with this arm, with this speed, with this strength. So I leaned into how can I be the best leader that I can? And that, he believes, is what got him at least his foot in the door to then becoming the greatest of all time.
That's very interesting.
So you think about that, like, our kids play sports. So, if they're down in a game, down in whatever, really encouraging them at this point in their life, like, hey, it's how you act in the bad times that will define what opportunities you have in the future. So if we're in a down market for business is off, we're in this crazy market. Like, if you don't rise to the occasion now, holy moly, like trouble ahead. So I think you have to be able to pivot and.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot in there. And I know that in the interest of time, we probably need to wrap up this segment.
Yes.
So we'll stop there on brainstorming, and then please join us next time to finish up the last 4 steps of pivoting.
And so what are the last 4 steps of pivoting?
We brainstormed a list. You got to prioritize. There's certainly ways to delegate. Even if you don't have employees, there's ways to delegate pieces of what you brainstorm to get things done faster.
Okay.
You have to act. Acting is like thinking up all sorts of cool shit and doing nothing with it is stupid. It's just a waste of time. So you got to act at some point. So how do you make sure that happens? And then work on your mindset to carry the distance, because we started with the 3 A's, and it's pretty difficult to stay focused on. It's okay to just win a little. But winning a little long term is what results in the best longest term gains, right?
Absolutely.
And so work on the mindset ideas to make sure you make that happen. So
I love it.
Yeah, I think it's super important. And so I hope you guys join us in the next episode as well. But until then.
Absolutely. So just to recap, stay with us for the next episode, because we'll be talking about the prioritization, the delegation, how to act on all of these ideas that you have, and then how do you keep a healthy mindset through all of it. So thank you for listening to this piece. We'll be back with next time with part 2, and subscribe and like and tell your friends and comment and
ask questions and disagree with me if you want to. Feel free to send a little text or email. I'd like to hear from you.
For sure. All right. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.
Cheers.